Hi, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take an amazing journey together, and I'm going to share with you, like I said, what God's done for me since 2006. But I'm going to take you back about 20 years before that, because there's been a story how this all came together. And everyone asks me, well, how did you get involved with Extract? How did this all come about? Did you wake up one morning and you got it? And it's kind of what happened, but I'm going to go into detail in my life story, my journey with my own health and how this all started. So the very first thing that I noticed is when I was in my 20s, I went to bed, fine the night of, and then I woke up the next day and literally I couldn't get out of bed. And immediately I thought it was the flu, because you don't feel good, you assume it's just the flu and it'll be fine and it'll pass. Well, 3 weeks later, I got progressively worse. And with the flu, since it's viral, usually you get better, you don't get worse. So I got concerned and I thought, well, I'm going to go to the doctor like everybody else does, and I'm going to go the traditional medical way and find out what could be going on in my body. So I instantly made an appointment. I went to my GP, and my GP took all the tests that he could take, sent me for lab work, that came back, and they told me there was nothing wrong with me. They said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Your levels are fine. We cannot find any even virus in your body. And I thought that was really strange. But I went back and I thought, okay, they gave me your traditional, take your meds and do this and do your daily due diligence and you'll feel better. Come back in 7 days. If you don't feel better, then we'll look at something else. Well, 7 days passed and I got worse, to the point where none of my organs were functioning. I couldn't move my bowels. I started breaking out in hives and rashes all over my body and my face. I was getting allergic reactions to almost everything I ate. Literally, my system was shutting down. So I go back and I tell my GP what's going on, and he says, okay, we need to take this a step further. Let's take some other measures and let's take you some specialists. So I started going through all these different specialists. Now I'm going to fast forward 2 years later. After 2 years, I got the same answer. Nothing wrong with you. You're overworked, you're overtired, and you're stressed out. Those were the answers I was getting from these very elite doctors and specialists in all the Chicago area. I even went to Indiana and all the different places that they say that they can give you help. They all told me I was crazy. So honestly, after about 2 years, I started thinking I was crazy. Well, then all of a sudden, the one thing that I could do was get a little bit of exercise when I had some energy, which was very little because I was so fatigued. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she knew what I was going through, and she said, have you ever tried a naturopath doctor? And at that time, remember, this is 20 years ago, I never really heard of a naturopath, and I said, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, it's as opposite of a doctor you can get. I said, sign me up, I'm going. Now, you got to understand, there's a lot of self-doubt going on, there's a lot of skepticism going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing from all these doctors, which are supposed to know all the answers of what's going on in your own body, that I'm crazy. So I start to believe that I am crazy. Then I decide to go to this naturopath doctor. Now let me tell you what happened here. See, God is so good. He has every step ordered for us. We don't have to try and figure it out. He's got it. We just have to be faithful and obeying. And so anyway, I go to this naturopath, and as I'm driving, and of course that self-doubt keeps hitting, and as I drive, I get to the door and I'm ready to turn around. That's that self-talk saying it's not going to work, you're crazy, it's in your head. I go to turn around, and guess what happens? The door opens and this beautiful young girl pops out, and she goes, are you Nina? Now at that point I know I have to go in. I walk in, and within minutes this woman looks at me. She goes, I heard what you said on the phone. I have some ideas what may be going on with you, but I do want to take a further look. And so she looks at my eyes and asks me some more questions, looks at my tongue, my skin, does a hair analysis, and she comes back, she goes, I know what you have. And now I'm thrilled to hear somebody actually knows what I have. She goes, you have something called Candida. Now I had no idea what Candida was. I never heard of it. It wasn't very popular at the time. And so I said, what does that mean? And am I going to die? And she said, you're not going to die. She goes, but you have a pretty severe case of it. It's actually, it became system, it's in your system. So it's actually shutting your organs down. It's systemic, which means it's part of my immune system. It's part of my body, and my body's receiving it as normal. And so after hearing what I need to do to get to the next level for my health, I got very depressed, because she told me the reason I had this Candida is because of something that I'd taken in my body for many, many years that I didn't know was an issue. But when I was young, I went to a dermatologist for acne, which I really didn't have, but I was very vain at the time. And I just wanted to get rid of zits. And so they gave me something called tetracycline. And I had taken tetracycline on and off for 10 years. That's a long time to take a drug. And what I found out is that this medication releases a property or a process called yeast. And what happens is that yeast will start to overtake all the good bacteria, the flora in your body, and it starts to shut you down. And what will happen from that is all these symptoms will start to just rise up within years later. It didn't happen right away. Now, remember, this was when I was 16. This is 10 years later because I was in my 20s. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and then we're going to go to part 2. I'm going to finish my story. Make sure you come back.